everyone. I have some new encounters for y'all today. I hope everyone's enjoying their Sunday out there, wherever you are, whatever time it may be. First off, I want to thank you if you stopped by to listen. You guys are absolute legends, and I cannot thank you enough. Before I get into the encounters, I want to again extend the invitation for anyone listening that's had an encounter of their own and would like to share it here on the channel. Please consider reaching out to me and sending me an email. I would be honored to hear your story. Now, with that being said and out of the way, let's go ahead and get into these emails. Everyone grab a drink. Lock your doors and windows. Hit the lights. And let's get started. Good afternoon, brother. Sorry I have yet to hear what your name is, even after the many videos you've posted that I've listened to up to this point. And I feel silly calling you Reels, probably because of my age, I suppose. Anyway, this is an attempt to get your opinion on what it was my father and I encountered way back in 1978, when I was 14, and my father took me fishing. A little bit about me first, so you have a better understanding of who you're conversing with. I'm 60, a retired cop where I finished up my career as a financial crimes investigator. I'm married to a wonderful woman that I met in 1984 at our state fair and raised 2 daughters. I was pretty much raised on the bayous and woods of South Louisiana, although I was born in San Diego. I mention this because my father frequently took my 2 older twin brothers and I camping in the desert and mountains. Growing up in southern Louisiana provided me with many, many days of fishing, hunting, and camping in many places. Some camping was spent in tree forts my brother and I built, in tents and in camps typically located way out on some bayou that is only accessible by boat. I've experienced many weird things during these trips, but most were explainable. Most. I still don't know what the floating lights you see typically in the hottest months of the summer at night, and always within the swamps. My dad called it swamp gas. That being said, the encounter I want to discuss happened while fishing with my father for the day. We put in at a boat landing called Bayou Barber, which is a bit southeast of Baton Rouge. It was my father and I's favorite place to fish, not so much for the fishing, but because it was so far away from civilization, and the Amite River goes for miles and miles. I hope I pronounced that correctly, as my hillbilly French is not that great. Off the main river are many what my dad called sloughs. These were inlets, I guess, that were typically about 10 feet wide from bank to bank, that got narrower the further down the slough you traveled. These were good places to get on the fish if you liked perch jerking, as my father and I did. There were an abundance of cypress and tapio trees, with branches hanging over the water that fish just congregate under, waiting for insects to fall off. The day in question, we were really far from the landing and almost to the end of a slough we had never fished before, when my dad said he had to use the bathroom. The end of this slough opened up into a big circular pond type of body of water, which was really cool and unique since they typically just get too narrow to fish in. At the back end of this pond, it was actually quite large considering about 50 feet wide, was a perfect place to pull up to and get out of the boat. So my dad grabbed a roll of teepee and wandered into the woods. The woods were thick with palmetto plants and big oak trees, and my dad disappeared into them. I grabbed my rod and a bucket of crickets and walked to an overhanging tree branch that had a large arc under the branch canopy to fish, and started catching some big bream. This is when the shitstorm began, and like other encounters, the woods became quiet. But it was a weird quiet, like something placed a glass dome over the entire area. The pressure even changed, or it sure seemed to. It was weird. I've been in the woods when everything goes quiet because a predator is around. It was like that, but definitely different. I've never felt that kind of quiet since. Once I noticed the weird silence change, I heard my father scream something in Cajun French, then a very loud cracking sound like a tree being snapped, and then my dad yelled my name, telling me to start the motor, now. I'm still standing in the same spot, scared shitless because I didn't know what was happening, when I see my dad bolting towards the boat, which was about 10 yards to my right, and he had a look of terror on his face that scared me to my bones because I'd never seen my father look that way. In fact, I'd never seen him afraid of anything. Well, I was still frozen, unable to decide what to do. My dad's screaming at me to get my ass in the boat and start the GD motor, now. When I hear this inhuman scream/roar that was so frigging loud I could literally feel it. It was a noise and level so alien to me it made me nauseous. Well, that was the kick in the ass I needed to get me moving, and bolted towards the boat faster than I'd ever moved in my life, leaving my pole and bait behind. Once I got in and started the motor, my dad leapt in and fell on the deck, yelling at me, "Go, go, go." Not far behind him, I heard what sounded to me like a damn tank crashing through the woods coming toward us. I shoved the boat in reverse, which the boat and motor only had one reverse speed, and that was "we're gonna die" speed. It was so slow, so when the bow was clearing of Hanging Branch, I turned the wheel and pushed the throttle into forward, and the boat jumped forward and stalled. By this time, my father had gotten up and was working his way to me to take over, telling me, "Move, move, move, you couillon," which I'm pretty sure is French for fool. He takes the wheel and turns the key, trying to start the motor, when all of a sudden this huge branch, about 8 inches wide with smaller branches coming off it, sails right over our heads and hits the water. This branch was big and full of leaves and other branches. I yelled, "Holy crap," and the creature decided to answer like it did before. And that's when I saw it. Now, to a 14-year-old boy, all I saw was a friggin' 100-foot monster. A real-life giant, hairy monster. For years I thought it was a Bigfoot encounter, and still may be. Thinking back with a rational mind, it was at least 8 to 9 feet tall, covered in a reddish-black hair. I don't remember seeing ears, but that doesn't mean they weren't there. It was massive across the chest and shoulders with huge arms. I can't tell you if it had legs like a man or a dog because of the foliage it was standing behind, but it was bipedal. It had hands, I know that, but don't remember seeing any claws. But here's where the confusion comes in. This creature had a muzzle. Not a long muzzle like a wolf, but a stubby muzzle like a hyena. And it did have big canine pointed teeth, upper and lower. I can't say if all teeth were pointed or just the canines. Its eyes were big, but nothing like what I've heard others are, and they didn't light up that I recall. I basically got a couple seconds look at it before my father started the boat and we sped away. The beast hollered once more, and that was that. My father and I didn't speak a word in the boat ride back to the landing. To be honest, I was afraid to talk to him first. On the car ride back home, he looked over at me and asked me if I was okay. I told him I wasn't hurt. He said, "Do you know what that was?" I looked at my father with a look of exasperation and said, "You're asking me?" He said, "No, son, I know what it was, and I was wondering if you wanted to know." Now remember, this was back in 1978, so we'd only recently heard of Bigfoot stories. He told me it wasn't Bigfoot, it was a rugaroo. He told me his father told him of an encounter his father and mother had in Bunkie, Louisiana, when they were building their house. He said that he never believed his dad and thought it was just one of those scare the bejesus out of the kids to keep them in line stories. He also told me never to tell anyone what happened. In fact, he made me promise him I wouldn't, and I would be punished if he finds out differently. I asked why, and he said no one will ever believe you, and that all telling people will do is label you as crazy or a liar. He said, trust me, son, I didn't even believe my own father. And that's about it. For years I've believed I saw Bigfoot. I figured rugaroo was Cajun's term for Bigfoot, but as an adult I've learned that it's not. This thing had a muzzle. No Bigfoot encounters I've heard say Bigfoot has a muzzle. In fact, it's the opposite. They have flat faces with wide noses. What do you think it was? My name is Tracy, by the way. I don't expect you to narrate this, just please let me know what you think I encountered. Thanks, brother. I have replied to Tracy's email, and I've tried to give him every bit of information that I can. But I will tell you guys as well, and I'm pretty sure you'll all agree, this was definitely not a Bigfoot. First off, Bigfoot doesn't have a muzzle, as he said. Another thing that I picked up on were the teeth. From people's descriptions, from my understanding, Bigfoot have square, human-like teeth. This thing had sharp canine teeth that he saw with his own eyes. Brother, I do believe that this was, in fact, a Dogman or rugaroo, whichever you prefer. Thank you for sending your email. I appreciate it. Hello, Real. I hope this email finds you well. Okay, I have an encounter I've kept to myself since I was a young man. Although not terrifying, I find it odd due to the location that it took place. You see, I live in Southern California. Always have, except during my 2 tours in the U.S. Army. Anyway, I was done with the military and back home. I was living in the city of Laverne. I lived with my best friend Jeremy in the house his good father left him. Jeremy, his sister Judy, his niece Tammy, and I had gone to a party in a desert town called Bakersfield. We were on our way home when Tammy asked Judy to pull over so she could relieve herself. As she exited the car, she said, "Come on, Fred." That would be me. She wanted me to watch her back. We were in the middle of a desert-like area, but across the road we were on there was some very tall grass. So we made our way over to it where we found a little trail. Tammy found a spot and continued to follow the trail just to see where it led. In the poor lighting of a street light, I could see that the trail dropped dramatically into a dry riverbed. I walked back to Tammy, giving her room for privacy in the tall grass. There was a tree growing out of the riverbed, located right on the edge of the darkness. What I mean by that is you could see branches coming out of the darkness into the light, but you could not really see the tree. Well, as Tammy found a spot, the tree started shaking from being impacted every second. I said to Tammy, "There is something in the tree behind you." She decided we should just go back to the car, and a good call it was. As we walked back, Tammy was in front of me. I looked back, and in the tree, a good 40 feet above us, there was this enormous dog head partially coming out of the darkness. A long time ago, a music artist named Ronnie James Dio put out an album called Holy Diver. The sight I was looking at reminded me of the demon on the cover of that album because it has self-lit red eyes and small ears. like Spuds MacKenzie, if anyone is old enough to remember that dog from beer commercials. It didn't growl, it didn't show its teeth or anything menacing. I looked forward and looked back again, and it was just the lit eyes in the darkness now. The eyes suddenly turned off or looked away, and the tree started with the impact shaking again. I realized it had been climbing up the tree when I first saw it shaking, and that was it. The fur on its face was very light brown and looked like a stuffed animal toy after you've put it in the washing machine. I figured it just heard us coming and wanted to see what was going on and what we were up to. He was just looking at us in a very calm manner, almost like a curious puppy. I never told Tammy to look back, as I didn't really have time to. I wish I had. The size of the head is the only thing I can really comment on because it's all I saw. But let me tell you, it was huge, and I didn't even see the end of the snout as he was looking down at us. It remained in the dark. Well, that's all I saw. You can use all our names. Sincerely, Freddie Sanchez. Hello, my name is Keith. I'm 49 years old, and 40 years ago, I had my Dogman encounter. It may not be as terrifying as some people's stories, being chased, attacked, almost killed. I can't imagine what they went through, but my encounter has terrified me most of my life. And by that, I mean night terrors. Seeing a creature so massive, so terrifying will mentally damage anyone. But up till about 5 years ago, they kind of stopped, except the occasional one here and there. But not as bad as what they were. I found YouTube Dogman stories like Reels, who is my favorite because he cares and wants to help people get their encounters out there so everyone knows they exist and to let you know you are not crazy. I think hearing thousands of other people's encounters helped me, as silly as it sounds, and I'm sure everyone else who experienced the Dogman feels the same way. I live in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and at age 9 I lived near a place called Middle Creek Wildlife Management. It was a huge place with hundreds of hiking trails up mountains, camping areas, and a big lake to fish on, plus adjacent streams. I spent my life going there, and as a child I was always riding my bike to the lake to go fishing or hike the trails alone. I've always been a loner, and the woods were my playground. It was a 15-minute ride from my house to Middle Creek right up the road, basically in my backyard. Well, the one day I was fishing and having a great day, which I lost track of time and it started getting dark fast. So I hopped on my bike and started pedaling my butt off, but I was too late. The darkness set in, so my 15-minute ride was all but pitch black except the moonlight, and only passing one little house with a dim porch light on, and not a single car passed me. I started feeling like I was in danger in the sense of being followed. I started seeing shadows moving in the trees with the little bit of moonlight that there was. When I got to my yard, I had to put my bike in the shed that was in the backyard and against the thick woods of Middle Creek, and about 20 feet away from the back porch. I threw my bike in the shed, slammed the door, and ran like crazy, but when I got to the porch and started reaching for the door, I all of a sudden froze, like I couldn't move. Something told me, or made me, turn around, and by the shed, a few feet in the woods by a tree, was a creature like I have never seen before. It was standing about 7 to 8 feet tall, broad shoulders, pointy ears, with short fur that looked black, staring at me with glowing yellow eyes. It was dog-like or wolf-like, hunched over a little, like leaning forward. I didn't see a snout because it never moved, but the head resembled a canine. This may sound weird, but I could feel its power or strength resonating off of it. and its vicious killing intent. It was a bit cool out. I could see its breath from the light of the moon and porch light. All of a sudden I could move again and opened the door, ran to my room, jumped in bed, put the covers over my head, and cried myself to sleep. I never told anyone in my family. I knew they wouldn't believe me. My 2 older sisters would make fun of me. My older brother would torment me, and my mom would just laugh. I never saw it again, and I don't understand why it followed me all the way home and let me live. Thank you, Reels. Please don't stop the Dogman stories. I am a member and listen to you every day. Keith. Keith, brother. This always aggravates me when I hear stories about these kids that tell people what they've seen and they're traumatized and no one believes them, even their parents. I'm a parent myself. If one of my kids come to me and tell me they've seen something, I'm gonna believe them. Anyways, Keith, I appreciate you sending this, brother. And also, thank you so much for being a member of the channel. That's awesome. Thanks again. Stay safe out there. God bless you, brother. Hi there. I've been up in the air about sending this in, but I hope I don't regret it. And that's not anything to do with you. It's just the fact that I don't want to be labeled as a liar. This isn't the place that happens, my friend. I'm still not exactly sure what I saw. I've gone back and forth about what it could have been, but as a few others I've heard, I figured maybe if I tell someone, I can stop replaying it so much in my head every single night. When someone sees something like this, it triggers a part of your brain that you just can't shut down after you see it. It's honestly torture at times. Anyways, my name is Denise. I'm 47 and I live alone in a 2-story townhouse in Lafayette, Indiana, on the south side, not far from the Mire on Beck Lane. I moved here in late 2018. It was a quiet, peaceful place and still is, and I enjoyed the peace and the small strip of woods behind my building. I used to enjoy listening to the owls out there at night when I had my windows open, but not anymore. I wouldn't dare leave any windows even cracked anymore. This all started back in the fall of 2021. I remember it clearly because it was right after Halloween, maybe the first week of November. It was getting dark a lot earlier and the weather had gotten to the point that it had that chilly bite in the evening. I was watching TV in bed one night around 11:30 or so, and I heard something up on my roof. Now, my bedroom has one of those small rectangular skylights above the bed, so I could hear the sound really clearly. Now, mind you, this wasn't a lot. This wasn't like a pitter-patter, like rain or squirrels. It was heavy, loud thudding. At first, I thought it could be someone trying to break in, or possibly some punk teenager trying to mess around. But this sounded like something pacing. The steps paced back and forth from one end of the roof to the other, about 4 or 5 times in a row, and then just stopped right over my bedroom. This went on for about 10 minutes. I turned off the TV and just lay there listening. By this point, I was terrified, shaking, and my body was covered in chicken skin. Chicken skin. That's a term I haven't heard in a while, and I'm here for it. Love it. I couldn't bring myself to go outside and check. I've seen a lot of horror movies, and that's how people end up dying. I did finally peek out of my upstairs window, but I didn't see a thing. Eventually, all the movements stopped, and I figured maybe it was a big raccoon on the prowl. The very next night, it started happening again. I was actually brushing my teeth in the bathroom when I started hearing it. The same pacing, but now I could feel vibrations in the ceiling like Something very heavy was shifting its weight. I'll admit I had reached maximum fear levels at this point, and I thought about calling the police, but first I called my friend Carol, who lives in West Lafayette, and had her stay on the line while I checked around the outside with a flashlight. Nothing. No people, no animals, not even a breath of wind. But when I looked up at the roof, I did notice something weird near the skylight. It was like a smudge or a mark on the glass. The next morning, I got a small stepladder from the garage. I climbed up and got closer to get a look at the skylight. There were 3 long vertical streaks across the outer pane, like something greasy had touched it, and this wasn't from rain. I tried to convince myself it was that nasty raccoon from earlier, or it could have been a big bird. But I was forced to abandon those theories when things started getting a lot worse. Over the next week, it kept happening, usually between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. Sometimes I'd hear scratching near the eaves. Once I swear I heard this like deep, loud snort or growl right above the skylight. That was the night that I started sleeping on the couch downstairs. I finally had enough and I decided to call animal control, but they determined that it was most likely a raccoon nesting, or it could have just been a stray cat that liked the warmth of the roof. They didn't even come out to check. A neighbor told me I should set up a trail cam or a ring camera, so I ordered a motion-activated one and mounted it just below the roof line and aimed it towards upward to catch the area around the skylight. 3 nights later, the camera stopped working. No alerts, no video. When I checked it, the casing was cracked and the mount had been twisted off. Not broken, twisted like someone had grabbed it and yanked hard. The SD card was completely gone too. I thought maybe it had just fallen out, but I checked all over the ground and could not find it. Let's get to the night that I actually saw it. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I had just finished doing some late cleaning, vacuuming and wiping down the kitchen. I sit down in the living room with a cup of tea. I keep the back patio blinds closed, but I have these thin white curtains that glow a bit if something passes by with enough shadow. At exactly 12:17 a.m., I looked at the microwave clock. I remember it, I'll never forget it. I saw a shape move across the curtains. Big, like tall man big, but very bulky in a strange way. It was very fast, just a quick gliding movement past the window. I completely froze. I turned off all the lights and just sit there for maybe 5 minutes in total silence. My ears began to muffle and start ringing. It was so quiet. I could actually hear my heart beating in my ears and feel it. It was pounding so hard. Then I heard a metallic creak. One of the gutters above the patio. That's when I remembered the roof extends over the patio and there's a small patch of flat shingles above it. Someone or something was climbing it. I grabbed my phone and went upstairs, just enough to peek through the bathroom window, which faces the alley and the strip of woods beyond the property fence. I didn't see anything right away, but when I looked up, and I swear to you, I saw a figure on the roof across from mine. It was perched near the edge like it had jumped across. I could only make out the silhouette, the outline in the dark, but it was a hulking, hunched forward figure, and it looked like it had long arms, and I could clearly see a canine snout. It looked like a dog or a wolf, but it seemed to be a lot longer and a lot broader. Its ears were sticking straight up. I only saw it for about 2 seconds before it jumped down into the trees behind the buildings. I heard branches and trees snapping as it moved. Not only that, I didn't sleep that night, but I didn't even sit down. I just stood in the hallway with a hammer in my hand until the morning. The next day I told my neighbor about it. She's in her 60s and has lived in these townhomes for over a decade. I expected for her to laugh, but instead she said, "You heard it too, huh?" Then she told me something that really freaked me out even more. She told me years ago people in the neighborhood would occasionally talk about something moving through the woods back there. Tall, fast, animal-like. She said her husband had seen something strange one night back in 2009 when he was taking out the trash. He saw a set of glowing eyes inside the trees watching him. He never talked about it again. They just chalked it up to one of those things better left alone. I completely get it. After that, I had my brother-in-law come over and help me install motion lights all the way around the house. We checked the roof and found several claws and scratches in the shingles near the skylight. And there was a small dent in the vent pipe, like something heavy had stepped on it. I still have some pictures, but they don't prove anything, so to me they're useless. Nothing major has happened since that. It's like it just lost interest, or maybe it was just passing through. God, I can only hope. But I do still hear sounds on the roof every now and then, but I don't go upstairs when I do. And I keep all the lights on. I haven't used that bedroom in over a year. I just can't be comfortable in there anymore. The new tenants who moved into the end unit stopped me while I was getting my mail. The wife asked me if I'd ever seen raccoons on the roof at night. I just looked at her and said you might want to get some motion lights. Anyway, I don't know if it was for sure a Dogman. I'm not saying it was. I'll let you or anyone else come to your own conclusion. But I will tell you it was not human, and it was not a raccoon. Something real was walking on my roof at night. I'll never forget the way it moved. It was also behaving like it wanted me to know that it was up there. Thanks for reading this. I just had to tell someone. Denise R., Lafayette, Indiana. Thanks, Denise. I do believe this, in fact, was a Dogman, going by your description alone. I'm glad that things have settled down and the thing seems to have passed on. Thanks for sending your email. I appreciate it. Stay safe. Well, legends, friends, family, what do you guys think? I myself find it very terrifying, the amount of sightings that are happening in the past, let's just say 5 years. It's very obvious to me, and it's easy to see that the intensity and volume of encounters is rapidly growing. They're becoming bolder. Now, what that means, and I'll be completely transparent, I don't know. I have my theories, of course, but I always like to hear yours. Please, if you have something to add or questions about the encounters or a theory, drop it in the comment section. Your theories is priceless to me on why these things are becoming more frequent. I'd like to hear them. Please, leave a comment if you would. If this is your first time and you're new here, please consider hitting the subscribe button. And also, everyone, don't forget to click that notification bell so you'll be notified of future uploads. I want to thank all you legends for listening, and especially I want to thank the legends that have become channel members. This will definitely help me in pushing the channel forward and progressing. Thank you guys so much for the support. That's going to do it for this upload. I love you guys, and I thank you again for stopping by. To get in contact with me, my email address will be in the description of this video, along with the link to the channel membership. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones, keep your head on a swivel, and as always, Good night.